Hey, everybody, it's Dr. MeriCrouley for Now Is the Time. And I'm really excited about having Larry Ballard back in the studio today. In fact, with an incredible show about the Great Reset, what to expect. Before we do that, though, today's commercial is going to be sponsored by QE Strong, the red light therapy. It's an amazing protocol. I use it every day. It really does make a difference. Let's roll that commercial, please.
The last time Rob was here with his red light therapy, we sold out during the program. The fountain of youth is red light.
It really helps your body in dramatic ways, not only in the skin surface level, but it goes in deep. It's got near infrared as well, so it goes in deep into the body and helps the mitochondrial process work more effectively.
NASA-inspired technology is this red light, and you can get it in all sorts of places. I mean, the Hollywood people use this all the time, right? The fancy folks. Athletes, Hollywood folks. It shuts down joint pain, melts inches off your waistline. Harvard, Stanford, NASA, like I mentioned, recharging your cells, reducing inflammation and pain. My wife's been using it on her hip and upper leg. Pain has reduced, mobility has improved. Even our dog loves it. Does this really help animals too?
We've got these amazing mats that compare with these $8,000 panels that are just super expensive because they work, but these mats are just as effective. And then we combine it with our quantum energy frequencies. With the code today, it's like $597, right? So we sell them typically for $1,200 off. We're going to send you an amazing bottle of Exodus, which has 7 biblical herbs and the molecular hydrogen with.
You only have 40 of these available because production is apparently a little slow. At QEstrong.com, achieve $597 after your $100 Gruber discount.
Yeah, so you go to QEstrong.com, put in my discount, Meri, M-E-R-I. Not only are you going to get the red light therapy mat, but you're also going to get a bottle of Exodus Strong. And they're also going to throw in some pain patches. So it's going to be really good. QEstrong.com, put my promo code Meri. Well, anyway, I want to introduce you to Larry Ballard. Welcome back into the studio, Larry. How are you?
I'm very good.
Yeah, you know, we've been, you were at my Open the Heavens event in Las Vegas, which was actually just last month on May 8th and 9th. That went incredible. We're planning our next one. We're looking at doing it in Branson, Missouri, possibly, but we're actually looking at some venues. So it's exciting. Keep the ball rolling. Keep the show rolling. So, Larry, you've got a really great program today called The Great Reset, What to Expect. Let's get rolling on this show today.
Okay, well, basically, this was originated when I saw Trump go to China, and I said, wait a minute, something's going on. He took 18 top-level CEOs, and then I prayed on it for 3 or 4 days, and I got the unction that I knew what it was because I thought I had heard from God. So that's the genesis of this story, and it basically takes us back in history where we saw the event in which America became the world's reserve currency. Then we saw another event in '85 called the Plaza Accords. And my conclusion is that if we follow that train of thought, we are now going into what I call the Plaza Accords 2.0. And so this is going to be explaining that. And then it's also going to take us a little further. As we go into the reset, I think all of us, your audience, is out there saying we want it to be our reset, the white hat reset, not the bad reset. So basically, then we're going to go through an overview with 17 slides that we're just going to go through all but 2 of them very fast because it leads us into a very, very long 6-part series, which we're not going to do today. We're just going to set the stage to say, here's the reset, here's what it's going to look like, and these are the components that Donald Trump is initiating to make sure that we get the reset that we want. So we can dig into it anytime you want, Meri. We can go to the next slide if you're ready.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Yes.
Commercial time for both of us. So basically, I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm going to tell you about this book in a different way than I have before. I've said it empowers you to be a part of the reset, to step into offices how they open as our politicians leave, but it does more than that. What it does is it it basically gives you every piece of information you need to understand that God knows the end before the beginning, and we've won. So what this book will do is that it's a guide for your children, but for you, I think there's lots of people out there that are afraid of what's coming, afraid of this reset. And this book will give you everything you need to know so that the truth can set you free and ease your tension, ease your concerns. You'll be able to go through this and not be panicked, because you'll have a guide that says, yep, we're under control. We're under control. This is the way it's supposed to be. God's guiding us. So anyway, you can click on that QR code and buy the book directly. Or if you're not sure if you want to buy it yet, click on the code anyway. You can get a free chapter to read so you can get an idea of the depth at which this book is written. So let's go on down. Mary's a little tight for time, and so am I. So let's dig into this thing. So here we go. This is where God took me as the starting point for this show. He took me back to Brittonwood. And for those who don't know, that event, that's a hotel where a conference was held, and was held in 1945, immediately following the end of the World War. And basically, international trade was in a shambles. All the currencies of the world were in a shambles, and the world came to the United States and said, you're the only one who has economic stability. You've got most of the gold, all your manufacturers intact. We want you to be the world's reserve currency, but we have one little request. We want you to be able to promise that you will convert your currency upon demand into gold rather. And we said, okay. Well, that held until we got to another pinnacle event in time, which is 1971, when England had been manipulating some things in the background. Remember now, England is the nation that we fled to come here to start our new nation, because we were under their economic system of slavery. And so basically they orchestrated an event that caused Nixon in 1971 to go on TV and said, he breached the Bretton Woods Accords. He said, we are temporarily suspending the conversion of the US dollar into gold. And that was permanent. That's been here ever since. That set the stage for the next president to be puppeted, and that was Carter. And what Carter did is came in and he said, under the leadership of Britain, puppeting him, he said, we're creating a completely new economic system. It's a super capitalist economic system with all the innovation of capitalism, but under communist rule. And so that began the process where they began to shift power from the United States, particularly manufacturing power, to China, and America started to go deep into debt. At that time, we only had a $660 billion national debt after 200 years. Look forward 50 years later, and now we have a $39 trillion debt. So that's the system we've been under a super capitalist communist new form of government. That's what's falling. That's what is happening with the reset. We're now going back to the economic system that we were under when we were founded, back under our Constitution, back under an economic system where we're not under the Fed, where we're not under the IRS, where we basically run everything with a simple sales tax. So let's break this on down, and we'll get on to the next slide. The U.S. is decoupling. No, stay on that slide. The U.S. is decoupling from Europe. We finally woke up. We finally understand, just like the Bible tells us, that the beast system comes out of Europe, and the head of that beast is England. And finally, with what's happening in the Middle East right now, what's happening in Iran, Trump has woke up and telling the world, England is our enemy. So we're decoupling from them. For the last 76 years, we have been their protectorates. We provided them military control. We've been their police force. And Trump was putting them on notice. Nope, you're going to pay, period. We're not going to cover it anymore for you. And one of the things that he's done to show that he means it is he just pulled 5,000 troops out of Germany and going on down. So the post-war era is over, and we're pulling out. And I'm going to show this in another slide. Gradually, a little at a time, we're pulling out of the UN, out of NATO, and OPEC is basically disbanding, and they're going to start producing more oil, which after this war is over is going to reduce oil prices. The last thing we want to say here is by controlling the Straits of Hormuz and by controlling their proxies, Iran has kept the world in perpetual war. My entire lifetime, we've had nothing but war in the Middle East. all the nations in the Middle East said, we're done. We are done being controlled, done having all this war. So we entered into the Abraham Accords. And as this war grewled on, guess what happened? Donald Trump provided protection to the Muslim nations, oil-rich nations. Basically, essentially, the Iron Dome that we gave Israel was extended to them. And so now they're committed to staying in this until it's over, see it through to the end, until Iran no longer has the ability of having a nuclear weapon and no longer has the ability to control the strait, because that's the oil lifeline of the world and also the lifeline of the Middle East. So the world, 31 nations have now said, we're going to see this to the end and we're going to end these conflicts. So what Trump is negotiating is this reset. And to do it under the SARA, we have to have basically on a commitment to no wars. So he's already got us out of 8 wars. And I think if you look at the financial situation between Ukraine and Russia, that can't go on much longer. And if you look at Iran, we've now gone from kinetic war, which is still going on, but into something from ancient times. This is effectively an old-fashioned siege, and siege is only in one of 2 ways. Either the people starve to death, the economy collapses and absolute chaos happens, or they surrender. So it's just a matter of time. They don't have any choice. There's no way out with America blockading and with 31 other nations on the side and with us taking out the mines one by one. The conclusion is right before us. Let's go on to the next slide, and I'll tell you about what happened in 1985 when we had gotten ourselves in a bit of a sticky wicket. We had now been under the Bretton Woods Accords, but our dollar was now too powerful and we were having a problem. We couldn't compete in international trade because it made our goods cost too much. So we called in Japan. That was the really important one, in England and France and West Germany. So you got to help us. What we got to do is you got to help us bring our dollar down in comparison to your currencies. And they did, but it backfired on Japan. Japan's currency became too strong. And the problem that they inherited was even worse than the one that we had, because we had a very robust domestic marketplace because we're the #1 consumers in the world, but they're just this tiny island. They didn't have much of a domestic market. So when all of a sudden their currencies were so high, they were in real trouble because now they had a small domestic market and they couldn't compete competitively in the international market. So that caused them to come in and we had to basically renegotiate. That's where we're at now. We're at another tipping point that I'm calling the reset, the Great Reset. And I wanted a name for it. So I said, well, I think it's the Plaza Accords too. So now that's what I think Trump initiated when he went to China.
The Plaza Accords happened in 1945, 45?
No, 1985.
Oh, 85.
Bretton Woods was in 1945. The Plaza Accords were in 1985. And okay. I believe that what we're seeing now is a replay. Let me give you an idea of why. So the situation that Japan was in was their currency was worth too much money, and they had a small domestic market, and they had the oldest population in the world. And that meant that they didn't have a lot of people to man their factories. So part of this accord to get them to agree with us was we gave them an open door to come into the United States and build their factories. And then we saw what happened. We saw Toyota blossom and LG and all their other technologies. China's in the same place. They say within the next 10 years that there'll be more people in China into pins than there will be in diapers. So they have a demographic issue. Plus they're losing the manufacturing, and it's coming here. So basically what happened with the orchestration of our own government is we funded the building of all the factories in China. And now under this new accord, we've now got commitments for $18 trillion to build factories here. So China and the other nations of the world are now going to be forced into helping us rebuild our manufacturing base. And that's the Great Reset for America. So that's basically where I think we're at right now.
Okay.
So should we go on down? Next slide, okay? All right, The next slide, I want to give you an idea for something that's very important. As we come out of this, we're no longer going to be in a unipolar world where there's only one superpower, the United States of America. It's going to be a bipolar world. But as we're we're consolidating power. Other nations, some of them are weakening. So basically what we're doing in the Western Hemisphere over here is we're consolidating power. We're reinstating the Monroe Doctrine that says, Russia, you get out, China, you get out, and all of our neighbors, we're going to have better relationships with them. So we need to understand we haven't had a good relationship with Canada because they're still under the crown. That's why they let fentanyl come in from the northern border. But now we're doing some things. We're renegotiating trade agreements with both Canada and Mexico, and there's a lot happening behind the scenes. We're going to come into a better relationship with Canada, with Mexico, with Latin America, and with South America. We needed to get control of the Panama Canal, which we did, and we need to make that hemisphere understand we're no longer going to repress you. We're no longer going to impose Western hegemony that keeps you from building your infrastructure so that you can take your natural resources and ship them out as finished goods. So the first act of goodwill that we did was we bailed Argentina out. They were about to have a bond collapse. Now let's go to the rest of the world and you'll see America is getting stronger. Europe is falling apart. It's absolutely, there's a revolt going on where the nations in Europe have said to Brussels, which is totally a bureaucratic, unelected government that rules Europe. You have destroyed us. You have created an energy crisis with your Green New Deal and an immigration crisis, and you have failed to advance our technology, and so we're in real trouble economically. Russia's in trouble because the war wasn't in and out like they thought, and their oil fields are now being struck because Ukraine is being able to get long-range drones over there, so they're in trouble. China is bleeding out in a number of ways. They have a demographic issue. The real estate market has collapsed. They're losing manufacturing. So now let's move to India. India is going to have somewhat of a better situation because they're inheriting manufacturing from China. But they have their own endemic problems. They have 27 different provinces, 27 different languages. They failed to do what they should have done back when they started to grow, which was to go into the manufacturing industry. Instead, they went into service, and now service is going to be taken over by AI. So you'll see India grow, but it's not ever going to grow, as some people have said, to take over China and become the world superpower. Now let's go to the Middle East, and something has happening there that might surprise you. Because America helped to defend them, and because of the Abraham Accords, and because they have been smart enough to not depend just on oil or natural gas, they've diversified. You're going to see a strengthening relationship between Israel, the United States, and all the Arab Middle East nations, and they're going to grow. And then you go to Africa, and the bonds of slavery are going to be removed from Africa because basically their currency is going to be based on natural resources, and they're one of the most richest natural resources continents in the world. And they're structuring for the new technology. They have basically put in an internet technology across all of Africa with bill payment built in, and they've also done what we do with Canada. Now you can go across any country in Africa with just a driver's license. You don't have to have a passport. Then we go over to Australia, and Australia has forever been our friend. And I think you'll see, even though they're not in our hemisphere, Australia is going to levitate towards America. So what's going to come out of this is just what Trump promised. Trump will be great again. I mean, America will be great again, greater than ever. We're consolidating our power base, where most of these other nations, particularly Europe, Russia, and China, are actually fracturing. India growing wildly, and the two that are prepared, other than us, to grow significantly are the Middle East and Africa. So that's a glimpse at what the world is going to look like. That sets us up for the negotiation that we're going to have in the Middle East, where we negotiate from a position of strength. Now, if we go to this next slide, we'll see what Trump is doing that's different than what's ever been done before. When we were under 29, that collapsed, and that bankrupted us in 33, when we were under 08, there's a strategy, and they follow it every time. What they do is they leave gold on the books at a very, very low price. In 33, it was $35. Then they took it and raised it 69%. And now gold is on the books at $42, when in fact it's selling for $4,500. So what they do is they basically raise the value of gold. It doesn't pay off the national debt, but what it does do is it affects the debt to GDP ratio, making it look like we're not as in deep a debt as we were, but it causes inflation. So the global financial elite run that scenario, and they pay off their debt that they purposely inflicted us with currency that's worth less and less and less. Now, Trump's got a different agenda. He's got to do that. He's locked into that. But now I want to show you the genius of the man and how he's going to keep his promise to make America greater than ever. So he's going to raise gold, according to his own words, to $20,000 or above. That's going to affect that GDP ratio tremendously. And then he's been confiscating money. Huh?
$20,000 an ounce?
Yes, he has announced himself he's going to create a strategic reserve that holds gold and Bitcoin and XRP, and he's got a value for it all. He says gold he's going to raise to $20,000. XRP, Bitcoin, he's not buying it. He's getting it because he's confiscating money from people who are committing treason against us. So he's got a Bitcoin reserve, and he's going to raise Bitcoin to $1 million a coin, and then he's going to run the economic system, get off of SWIFT, and run it with a system that's far more efficient. The new world's reserve currency is going to be XRP, because we won't be dependent upon holding $17 trillion out of the economy so that we can make transfers from one nation to another in the currencies of those two nations. Instead, XRP will be the liquidity, and we'll be transferring money in 3 to 6 seconds. We'll be able to fractionalize anything. And that's what you have to do to go into God's economic system. You have to be able to take a tanker full of oil and fractionalize it down to the gallon. You need to be able to take a truckload of wheat and fractionalize it. So now here's the rest of what he's doing. He wants to create a collapse because we have to take control off of the financial elite, but he wants it to be a controlled collapse. So on top of that reserve, he's putting us under a stable coin that's backed by the US dollar, and that forces you to buy a US Treasury bond, which is the vehicle by which he's going to put the brakes on the collapse. Now, he does something nobody ever has done. That last picture over there where it says $18 trillion, he's going to grow America astronomically quickly into a situation where America will become economically solvent, and then we'll help bring the whole world out of this economic chaos into a period of prosperity. And it started all the way back in his first term when he got the Chevron decision before the Supreme Court, which says, yes, in fact, 5,915 amazing patents have been held in abeyance, and you now have access to them. So what he's saying is, folks, we got $18 trillion committed to build factories, and it's now codified, but it's because it's not under an executive order. It's law, and that means those people are going to come in and they're going to spend that money, and it's going to make America grow like you can't believe. And we'll be tapping into those patents, which, by the way, contain some extraordinary free energy technology, which will lower the cost of every consumer item you will buy for the rest of your life. Because unbeknownst to most people, the major cost of every retail item you've ever bought or ever will is energy. So he's going to take the energy cost down. He's going to rebuild our factories. And the irony of it, if I have enough time to go into it, we basically built the factories for China, and now them and the other nations that have been against us are going to rebuild our manufacturing. It's sweet. So down on the bottom, and you're going to see the structure for all of the nations of the world. We're now going to basically God's economic system, and this is the accounting. So this was right on the deck clock just a few weeks ago. So our accounting, according to our assets, is that we have $1.7 trillion in precious metals and reserves. We have $13.1 trillion in mineral reserves. We have $86.3 trillion in real estate assets, $30.3 trillion in land, $64.1 trillion in the stock market, $9.1 trillion that we either have recaptured or will, and that gives us America a total value of $212.6 trillion in assets. If you divide that by the number of people, that means that each and every one of us has behind us, backing our economy, $620,000. America is solvent. America has gold. America does not have to worry about BRICS and causing all the world to go on their system. China is in trouble, so they're weak. But guess what? India has left BRICS. Russia has left BRICS. So when the time comes, we got all kinds of gold. We'll go on a gold-backed system, and we're going to come out of this stronger than ever. This is probably
one thing that we do have a big crisis in, and I've interviewed other people is the bond crisis.
Yes.
How are we going to get out of the bond issue?
Oh, that's a long question.
Okay.
But basically, it has to do with this, because if you go to the stable coins, that's going to cost us to buy U.S. Treasuries, and that's a bond. That's going to help us. But part of it is going to be because a lot of these debts are illegal and unconstitutional. I've got a show queued up. It's very detailed. It'll answer your question. We can do it in a week or so if you want. It is the deep dive into NESARA. So the question you ask is, how is NESARA going to affect the bond? And I can come back and do a show on that, but it's not a 2-second answer.
No, I get it, but I do. There's a bond crisis. So anyway, okay, let's keep going.
All right, let's go down to the next slide. And this is where we say, now we've got the groundwork. Now we're going to see what's going to happen. What Trump is doing that is going to mitigate all of this in our favor, so that this reset comes out, so that America gets back its power, and we share the technology, we share the resources with the world, and we enter into a period of peace and prosperity, and that's the likes of which the world's never seen. So let's go down, and what we're going to see is all the components that Donald Trump is maneuvering in our favor. So the Great Reset is happening right now, and these 17 things that go below this, we're going to cover them one by one. We're just going to run through a litany real quick, and I'm only going to stop in detail on 2 of these 17 items. So let's go on down to the next slide, and it's Restoring the Republic. And that's what this is all about. And it just so happens that 3 years ago, when my book was written, I already titled it Restoring the Republic. But don't think that book is 3 years old, because I always write my books early, and then when God releases it, I have to rewrite it. So this book is absolutely up to the last minute. But everything on this presentation is about restoring the Republic. Let's go on down to the next slide, and this is where I'm going to spend a little time. This is basically the organizational chart of the New World Order, of the global system. It's controlled by the UN and all of its global governance entities. And I want you to understand, Trump is dissecting them one by one by one. We're getting control back. So up at the top, you see a BG that stands for the Bilderberger Group. But really what it stands for is what Kennedy said when he made his famous speech before they assassinated him. He says, we have all kinds of secret societies that control us and that puppet us. So it's not just the Bilderbergers, they're the head of the snake, but it's the Council on Foreign Relations, it's the Trilateral Commission, it's Davos, it's all of those are the puppets who control us. Why? How do they control us? With money. Let's go down from the right to the left. NATO, is there any indication that we're going to get out of NATO and basically replace it at some time? Yeah, he's already put them on notice. You're going to pay your own military support, and if you don't, we're going to pull out. And what's he doing to basically make that transition? He's got the Board of Peace, and 26 nations have come in and handed in $1 billion, and then they're building the most sophisticated logistics network in the world, and it will generate billions of dollars. And one by one, that's going to bring more people in, and it's going to atrophy. It's going to be atrophy NATO and the UN. And so let's go on down. The U.S. aid, that we found out when he came in, when Doge got involved, it's nothing but money laundering. It's not the charity, it's money laundering. So he pulled us out. And then we go to the World Trade Organization, and what's he did? He says, we've been under intentionally losing trade for decades. It's over with. I'm negotiating new trade deals with everybody. He's right now negotiating more new trade deals with Mexico and with Canada. And then he said, and America became great in fact, because we came against England with tariffs, 50% tariff. And so he says, we're going to do that again so we can get back control. And now we're going to basically be making money on every trade that we have instead of losing money. And then we go on down to the World Health Organization, and he's just been telling us lately, look what they did with us at COVID. We're out. We're leaving the World Health Organization. And then you go to the World Bank and the IMF, and that's the control mechanism. That's controlled by England and all of the nations that were associated with them during the colonial period. And one by one, as he pulls out, here's what's happening. Washington's coming in, and Washington's going to take over the Federal Reserve. And just like Kennedy attempted to get us out from under the Fed, now Trump has laid all this groundwork so that we will pull out of the Federal Reserve. We'll no longer have the IRS. And then if we go back and visit what's happening with the Sorrel, you'll understand that we're going to go back to the economic system that made us great in the first place, based on tariffs and based on a simple sales tax. And down at the bottom is what I call the foot soldiers. Those are all the organizations that they use to control us. And how they control us is they use these people to basically give a microphone to say, well, we want this to happen. We want same-sex marriage, for example. And then Obama comes in and says, hey, I heard you. We're going to give it to you. Next thing you know, we're inflicted with same-sex and all the LGBT stuff. And that's what they do. And so the media lies and positions that. The Fed controls us financially. The corporations, I mean, we know what they do. They basically control us. And I go back to what Lincoln had to say. He says, all the way back in the Civil War, he said, I fear for our great nation because I see something happening. I see the banks merging with the corporations, and I see the money that they make them being used to buy the political structure. And I see that all the spheres of influence are one by one being taken over. All of that is being undone. We know who the enemy is. We know basically that all of the 8 spheres of influence have been taken over, academia and the unions, all of it. And Trump is one by one neutering them all. And you do it by controlling trade, because trade is the genesis of wealth. People say he who controls money controls the world, but you got to understand what the genesis is. The genesis is natural resources that's converted into industrial power, which is at 5,915 patents that he's releasing, that then is used in trade agreements that are profit making. Then that gives us the money of the world, and then we can help ourselves financially and help the rest of the world. So there's only one more that I'm going to go into in any detail at all. The rest are just bam, bam, bam. Let's go on to the next one. That's honest elections. And Trump has told us all along, I've got it all. That's why he went into Venezuela. That's why we've got all kinds of scandals that are being exposed right now. And there's many, as he has said, these all have an actual show behind them. There's many politicians that are under investigation for money laundering and different forms of fraud. Let's go on down to the next one. And the people are saying nobody is ever going to get arrested. That's not true. Basically, I don't remember this lady's name, but this was the scandals up in Minnesota, and they just arrested a woman and tried her, and she got 41 years. That's a life sentence. And there's all kinds of people being investigated, and one of the names that's being investigated is none other than Barack Obama. So the truth is pouring out. We're going to find out about the elections. That's why he went into Venezuela. There's a whole lot more to it. But God told me in 68, the time will come when this reset comes, and I will flow out unto the world the truth of what's been done to control my people, and the truth will set them free. So we're going to basically have just unbelievable numbers of whistleblowers coming out, and then we're going to see what's been done, and then hopefully we're going to stand united, and we're going to take this country back. Let's go down to the next slide. And from here we just rip. We're going to go very, very fast. Gold-backed debt-free currency. That's what's going to happen when we get back control of the Fed. Let's go down to the next one. And this is the biggie. This is what we get control of once we get control of the money. So basically, he who controls money controls the world. So we'll get control of the banking system, the political system. Most of our politicians were not elected. They're in there illegally. They will be removed. And many of our religious leaders
I just want to interject. We just had our primaries here in California, and you could just tell there was so much cheating. We're still seeing this, I know President Trump, that's what his number one thing that he wants to do is take back elections, same day voting. We're going to have to do it in order to get it back. But anyway, keep going, Larry.
We're going to do it. And many of the religious leaders are going to be outed because they were under 501Cs, which meant they were on a muzzle and they couldn't say anything political from the pulpits. That's going to change. The entertainment industry, well, Meri is involved in that. And we see more and more Christians putting out more and more movies. And we just saw a movie that I think was absolutely phenomenal, The Great Awakening, that's done by the Sight and Sound people. And then I wouldn't be doing this show here, and neither would Meri on YouTube if it wasn't for the fact that censoring is less prevalent than it was. We're going to get back control of the education system. What did Trump do the second he came in? He came against the education department and said, I'm stripping it. We're going to change the entire curriculum of our public education system. And then the corporations, and 2024, 180 CEOs basically left their positions. They said, we're retiring. No, they were kicked out. You don't leave multi-million-dollar jobs unless you're escorted out the door. And then that takes us right back to where we started, the banking industry. And the one that people don't think about that relates to that is the military, because they drive us into perpetual war to drive us into debt so that the banking system can control us and be inflicted upon us. That's all changing. And it's all because of Donald J. Trump. Now, that's the last one we're going to spend any real time on. Let's go to the next one, and that's borders. And he's closed those borders. So now what we got to do is get out the people who are here, that were sent here to be an army of incursion from within. And if you don't think that happens, you just go turn your TV on and you go look at what's happening over in Europe right now. There are riots all over the place, and they're trying to do it here. We need to basically come in and stand up for ICE and get these people out of here. Let's go down to the next one. This one is very important. People don't even know what it is. It's the American economic system. I'll tell you what it was. It was the system that made America, and on its centennial anniversary in 1876, the youngest nation in the world, the most powerful nation in the world, the richest nation in the world. And it's by doing exactly what Trump is doing now. We put a 50% tariff on Europe, and we said, we're going to develop our manufacturing and share it with the world. And in 34 years, we said we are now number one in mining, in manufacturing, and in, what's the third one? Mining, manufacturing, and agriculture. And we're the wealthiest nation in the world. Trump is not guessing. That's the exact model that he's using to make America great again. Let's go on down to the next slide. And basically, we're going to get energy independence. That's that 5,915 patents that he's making available to us. Let's go to the next slide. And what we find out is they control energy, and energy controls the world and the cost of everything. And when they drive up the cost of gas, of oil, it basically means that many people out there can't control the necessities of life, but they have another way to control it. They can make sure that we can't get certain minerals, certain things that we need. That's why we have such a concern over the computer chips and such a concern over rare earth. Trump is going to see to it that that is basically distributed in such a way that they can't cause artificial breaks in the logistics system. Thus going down, fair and equitable trade. He's negotiating new deals everywhere, and he's imposing tariffs where needed. And then let's go down to the medical system. And I think we all know and believe that med beds are real and they're coming. And then I spent 22 years in the healthcare industry, and I can tell you that I knew some pharmaceuticals that had markups of up to $4,000. And what did he do? He says, nope, we're negotiating a new deal. Whatever the lowest price is on any pharmaceutical, that's the price America gets. Do you get the trend? Donald Trump said, I will make America great, and he is following through on every single solitary thing that needs to be done. Let's go to the next slide, and we're going to see something here. The U.S. will exit NATO. I talked about that a little bit a minute ago. They say to them, you're not able to defend yourself. You sit back and let your military atrophy and let us carry the bill. No longer. And so this is something that we really need to talk about on another show. We provided military protection against those missiles coming in from Iran. And because of that, the relationship with America, Israel, and the Middle East and oil-producing nations is unbelievable. We're now, it's not that they don't still hate us, that we still don't have differences, but when it really comes to the negotiating table, economics is what rules relationships between governments, and we now have a much better economic relationship between ourselves and the oil-producing nations. Let's go on down to the next one. We're almost done, and this is basically where they use what we do for good against us. They say, America, you've got to let all those people in. Immigration is a human right. No, that people don't know that between 1924 and 1965, we had all our infrastructure built, and we said, no more immigration, not legal or illegal, because we don't need it. We can't afford to support the poor people, and they're coming in so many that we can't assimilate. We need to do it again. That's it. Let's go on down to the next slide, and we're going to find out that we must have a global financial parity. And Trump has said it. He said it, and Eisenhower said it. Remember, Eisenhower was a general before he was a president. He said that the principal cause cause of war between nations is lack of economic parity. Trump has said, we will, this by the way means we will have a financial reset. All currencies will be valued. First world nations currencies will go down. Third world currencies nations price will go up because their currencies will be valued on their abundant natural resources. Let's go on down to the next one. And this is basically almost to the end. Peace and prosperity are required for an Asara, and that means we have to have financial parity, which I just mentioned, and we have to have shared goals. And so if the goal is peace for around the world and sharing all the natural resources and all the technology and pooling money to be able to reclaim the earth and to do things that we need to do for planet Earth, then that's going to bring the reset, and it's going to cause the world to be basically another Garden of Eden. And we got one last bullet point: global revival. That's where God enters in. He knew the end before the beginning. He had all this planned. When we got into the Iran war, I just went to my Bible, and the Bible told me, hey, Iran was Edom back in the days, and then it was Persia, and now it's Iran. And guess what? I'm going to put a hook in their mouth, and they're going to be defeated. Their power is greater than it should be for their nation, because they control the blood, the artery of the world, which is oil, and it's being taken away from them. And so basically we're going to have a global revival, because the nations of the world have been just like the Israelites when they were in 400 years of slavery. The people in China have been through suffering. The people in Iran have been through suffering. And when that happens, people's bend the knee to God. And now the people in America are experiencing that. And we're going to have the greatest revival the world has ever seen. That's what it's all about. It's on God's terms. It's in God is using Donald Trump to orchestrate that. And what is going to happen, because God has shown it to me, America is going to have the greatest revival the world has ever seen, both economic and spiritual. And we're going to pull the world out of chaos into a period of peace and prosperity, and into a period where we bend the knee to God and we become a world of spiritual beings. So with that, there's just one last slide, and I just want to make a quick appeal. If you want to have peace and quiet and comfort in your spirit going into this book will give it to you, because it tells you what God's plan is, and we win. We won before the beginning. So you can click on that code and buy it, or you can click on that code and you can get at least a free copy. And if you go to my website, Larry Ballard, it's all there along with merchandise. And if you want to come to my show and watch me, I have 3 shows a week. And it's Liberty Crusade Official. Back to Meri. And don't forget to follow both Meri and me. So, Meri, that's the end. I did it as quickly as I could.
Wow. Well, that was quick. I hardly got a word in edgewise, but that's okay. We needed to get this done. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning. But anyway, everybody, as you've been listening to Larry, there is a great reset. God actually told me a long time ago that there was going to be a greater move of God coming than any movement known to man, including the Jesus movement, which I have been working in development on pre-production on a film called The Prodigal about the Jesus movement. It's always the darkest, Larry, before the dawn. And there's many people that are listening and they go, we heard this over and over again. I just did a show with Juan last week and I asked him this question. A lot of people I know that are good friends of mine, but they've lost hope. And we can't lose hope, because really we need to trust in the Lord with all of our heart and not lean to our own understanding. So we're in a new season, and we have to believe that we're in the time that we're going to see this paradigm shift, just like Larry was talking about the great, reset. This is a great reset. There's a lot of things that could go a number of ways, but we have to pray. We're in a season that we have to pray. And, I am going to be going back to Washington, D.C. God has told me to go back. I was just there. I flew in on the 14th, Larry, to Philadelphia. In fact, I got this key in Philadelphia. That's where, of course, our nation was really established. The Declaration of Independence was signed at Independence Hall. And, but then we went up to D.C. I was there for the rededication of America. And then we went to the Supreme Court. We were all over D.C. Let me tell you, as God said to go back. So I put a little campaign together, because it's expensive to keep flying and doing this. I put out, the Lord actually told me to have people sow a seed to DC. And I've got people that are sewing $250 for the 250-year anniversary of our nation. You can go on, in fact, put that up, MeriCrouley.com. You can sew there, or there's a number of ways you can give on, there's CashApp. There's a thing that you can scroll at the bottom, Curtis. It has all the different ways to give. CashApp, the $ Meri Crouley, Venmo, the @ Meri-Crouley. You've got Zelle and PayPal at MeriCrouley at Yahoo. They're all of them. They'll all be in the links below that you can click on, as well as where you can buy Larry's books and things like that. But let me tell you, sowing a seed into DC, I believe, is going to be very significant for me to go back with a team of core intercessors, and we're aligning with different people in DC that are very significant people that God is setting us up, I believe, from LA to DC and from north to south, east to the west. We're getting ready to see the blessing. So anyway, my website again, MeriCrouley.com. Click on the link below and support both of our channels. Larry, I've been seeing shadow banning on even channels that you didn't think would be shadow banned, but I see it. But let me tell you this: God said it's not how many views and it's how many people in the pews, but God just said, don't hit the snooze, and you can't lose. I mean, we got to stay focused. We got to keep moving. We got to keep going. Just like I'm going to get ready to do another Open the Heavens. We're looking at October. And so I'll keep you informed about what God is doing. And Larry, you were just at the last one as we closed out. You thought it was a great event. What did you think about the Open the Heavens event?
I thought it was one of the best events that I could ever imagine going to. I thought it was spirit-filled. I thought it was informative. And that's why I would look forward to doing another one with you if I had an opportunity. It was great. Absolutely great.
Yeah. And you know what? God always has, different people, but the Lord knows we're literally going into these cities because God said to me, May 2nd, 2020, 6 years ago, over 6 years ago, he said, we won't shut up till you open the heavens. And so we are taking authority by, the power of the Lord. Psalm 24, lift up your heads, O you gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors. Let the King of glory come in. So all of us together, we're doing what he's told us to do. We're moving in formation and declaration and transformation as we hear under the Holy Spirit. And so I believe the greatest show on earth is rolling out. That's what he's always told me. The greatest movies, the greatest intellectual properties, the greatest music. The enemy has controlled the narrative on these for so long, Larry, but we're taking it back. So thanks for watching. Now is the time. Thank you, Larry, for coming on the show. And remember, hit the follow or subscribe, notification bell, do all that stuff. And if you make comments in the algorithms, it does shift it, but share this with 5 people. The best advertising, because I used to work at ad agencies and telecommunication companies, many years ago, they said the best advertising is word of mouth. So the best thing you can do is just say, hey, there's this really good, podcast I saw, and then share it with somebody. Put it on, your feed. That's the best way it can go viral if people just continue to share. Sharing is caring. So God bless you guys. We love you. We're in a season. It's going to be June bloom, not June gloom. And we're going to see a mighty outpouring of God's Spirit for the Great Reset. God bless you, Larry. God bless you for watching. And we're going to see a mighty reset. I think we're at the door of it. So tune in every week. We both do shows. We're excited to see what God is doing.